Hi everyone, my name is Harsh and I'm a second year master's student at JNU. Now if you're someone that follows news, you'd probably know that elections were held recently in JNU and results were declared this Monday. Now this election wasn't normal by any metric, so I thought I'd just make a quick video analyzing and deciphering this election for you. Now when you hear of JNU or JNU politics at large, the first thing that comes to your mind probably is the idea of left, and rightly so. JNU has been the bastion of left politics for decades now in this country. But what if I tell you that there was no left this time in JNU elections? Yes, you heard me right. There was no singular left, rather there were two lefts this time in JNUSU elections. Now conventionally left parties have fought elections in coalition against their common threat ABVP, but this time the two major parties, that is SFI and ISA, decided to compete elections separately, and one of the reasons why they decided to do so is because both of them wanted the post of president. So none of them were ready to compromise or back off, which is why they thought that we'd compete elections separately. So that was the one major division that happened within the left. There was another division happening at the same time, and it's an internal division that happened within BAPSA, right? Now BAPSA is an Ambedkarite party, and what you need to know about BAPSA is that their focus is more on the question of caste. Now conventionally, left politics has been driven by the question of class. Now this is not to say, of course, that left parties do not talk about caste, but it's primarily class driven. But what differs for BAPSA is that they are an Ambedkarite party, which is to say their focus is primarily on caste. So within BAPSA there were two factions. One faction thought that it's not okay for us to compete with SFI, and the other faction said that the other faction said that, you know what, it's okay to compete with SFI because as long as we keep ABVP out of the panel, it's fine for us. Which is why what we see is that even though there was an alliance on paper, BAPSA SFI, but BAPSA also fielded its own independent candidates, which is to say there were numerous candidates contesting at the same time, right? Within the left, now we have different BAPSA candidates as well. So this created a lot of confusion on ground. And what people feared was that this would necessarily benefit ABVP, right? Because note that whenever at the level of opposition, say if you take up national politics, right? At the level of national politics, if you talk about India Alliance, or if at the level of state, you talk about Delhi elections for that matter. India Alliance, that is Congress and Aam Aadmi Party, decided to compete elections separately, and which is one of the reasons why Aam Aadmi Party lost the elections, because Congress garnered a lot of votes, and that vote was necessarily the vote bank of Aam Aadmi Party. So what we see is that whenever there's a divided opposition, it benefits BJP, and by extension at the level of university politics, a divided politics necessarily benefits ABVP. So this is what progressive people on ground were fearing, right? There was a lot of confusion regarding the same. Now that we have spoken about left, let's just talk about the right, the ABVP for the moment. Now ABVP decided to field a woman candidate for the post of president this time, right? Which is something that's very, very progressive of them. But what we also need to understand is that by virtue of her being a woman candidate, the chances of her winning was symmetrically lower. And it's rather unfortunate that I have to say this, but make no mistake, JNU is not different from the mainstream society. If the mainstream society that we inhabit is something that's deeply patriarchal in nature, the same applies to JNU as well. This is not to say that everyone in JNU is patriarchal, but this is rather to say that JNU, of course, is at the end of the day, it mirrors the larger society at large. So of course there's progressive forces on ground, but there are also conservative forces on the ground. Now this is something, if you think about it, this is very similar to United States of America. So in the American politics, they say that if you're a woman candidate, your chances of winning are automatically lower. For instance, Kamala Harris was basically a deserving candidate, but one of the reasons why she lost this election is because she was a woman. Same applied for Hillary Clinton as well, right? So that was the larger conundrum that existed on ground with reference to the ABVP woman candidate for the post of president. Now that we have spoken about left, we have spoken about right. Now let's just talk about an interesting and bizarre tactic that was deployed by ABVP, right? Now, for the post of president, ISA decided to field Nitish Kumar as their candidate. Now, Nitish Kumar is basically a PhD scholar at Center for Political Studies. Now, what ABVP did is it instigated MA student, also called Nitish Kumar by the way, to contest for the post of president. Which means on the ballot paper there were two Nitish Kumars. Now to make a distinction, the election committee decided to put the word PhD next to Nitish Kumar, which is the candidate for United Left. So there was Nitish Kumar PhD on ballot paper and there was Nitish Kumar. Now, even though the left parties, the United Left, did try their best to convey this message on ground to their cadre, to their supporters, etc., but I do think that when you are in that room and you have to cast like a number of votes, it does create a sense of confusion, and it eventually did lead to like a loss. Not like it wasn't a major loss, so to say, but it did create some ruptures. It did cause a minor loss for the United Left candidates at large. Now that we've spoken about this, let's just talk about election results, right? Now, election results came out Monday, as you guys know, and ABVP won the post of Joint Secretary. Now, this is remarkable because ABVP has been out of JNUSU panel for nearly a decade. The last time they were on panel was in 2015 and 16, right? So, is this result concerning? 100%. But is this result that's something that's surprising? Not really. Because on the ground, there was a lot of confusion as to which one is the true left. Because note, all of them, both the left parties, which is to say, were saying that we are anti-fascism, we are anti-capitalism, and we are the progressives out there. But there is no readily available way to make a distinction between who the true left actually is, which is why there was obviously a division of votes happening, and that division of votes inevitably benefited ABVP at large, right? So I do think that the left parties, it was a very risky experiment, because on the three positions that the United Left won, which is the ISA DSF panel, the winning margin was something that's between 100 and 200 votes, right? What if things would have gone the other way around, right? Would they have taken accountability for it? Well, I do not know, and I do not personally think so that would have happened, right? The ultimate blame would have been shifted on the students, right? So the larger point that I'm trying to make is that in a polarized and divisive time that we currently inhabit, because within JNU there are a lot of problems, right? For instance, there's a problem of this is a demand of increasing non-net fellowship. There's also a demand for bringing back JNUEE, which is the JNU entrance examination. And these are again very radical attempts, and these require coordination of all progressive fronts at large. So this time, even though they were able to keep ABVP out of the central panel, but at the level of schools, so schools are basically analogous to what you call departments in other universities. At the level of schools, ABVP did register the highest ever number of councillors that basically won from their side of the house. So that is that. Now, the last time ABVP was on panel, the reason why I say that this is concerning is because the last time they were on panel was 2015-16, and if you remember, this is something that this was 2016 was the time that major protests took place in JNU, and JNU was labeled as an anti-national university by the mainstream media. So we do not exactly know as to how things will pan out now that ABVP is part of the JNUSU panel. It will inevitably make the task of running the student union difficult, because of course there will be no consensus, which is to say the other three, which is the United Left, would swing in one favor, and ABVP by virtue of different ideologies would swing in the other side of the spectrum. So that is that. The exact specifics of it, however, remains to be known, and whatever happens in JNU, I think only time can tell.